How does a place built entirely for the worship of one God completely forget its own spiritual roots? To understand that, we have to look at one of the most unforgiving environments on earth. Thousands of years ago, the prophets Ibrahim and Ishmael arrived in the valley of Mecca. At the time, there were no cities or markets here, just a dry, rocky basin with no water and no people. But when they needed it most, a miraculous spring of water called Zamzam broke through the dry earth. That single source of water made life possible in an otherwise uninhabitable wasteland. With a way to survive, the father and son built a sanctuary. They stacked simple stones into a cube, the Kaaba. They didn't fill it with treasures or statues. It was built completely empty, dedicated strictly to the worship of a single unseen God. Because of that water and that simple stone sanctuary, nomadic tribes traveling through the desert began to stop and settle down. This was the foundation that eventually gave birth to Meccan society. Zooming out, we see why this region developed in isolation. Arabia was sandwiched between two ancient superpowers, the Roman Empire northwest and the Persian Empire northeast. Despite massive armies, they couldn't conquer Arabia. The punishing sands acted as a natural fortress, making traditional marches impossible. While the empires outside built towering stone cities and powerful centralized governments with emperors and kings, their influence stopped right at the desert's edge. Inside the desert fortress, life looked entirely different. No kings ruled here. Society was made up of fiercely independent tribes living by their own rules. Out in the isolation of the desert, you couldn't rely on a government to protect you. You survived only because your tribe protected you. Bloodlines and absolute loyalty meant everything. Over the centuries, the descendants of Ishmael multiplied into many different groups. Eventually, one specific tribe, the Quraysh, took control over Mecca and the Kaaba. Under leaders like Qusay bin Kilab, the scattered families of the Quraysh were organized into a unified force. They transformed Mecca from a simple desert settlement into a bustling hub of trade and politics. But with that power came a rigid social code. Tribal law was absolute. You stood by your family members, right or wrong. Even a small dispute could spiral into a blood feud lasting for generations. As Mecca grew wealthy, even the Kaaba was caught up in this ambition. Serving the sanctuary, like providing water to pilgrims or holding the keys to the door, stopped being a spiritual duty. It became a political prize used to show off a family status. The city was richer and more powerful than ever before, but in the pursuit of wealth and tribal pride, the original, pure spiritual message of Ibrahim was slowly buried. The breaking point for the spiritual legacy comes down to one man. His name was Amr bin Luhay. He was a deeply respected tribal leader who took a journey north into Syria. While he was there, he saw advanced, powerful societies bowing down to statues. Because these empires were so successful, he assumed their religious practices were a more sophisticated way to connect with the divine. He brought a single stone idol named Hubal back to Mecca and placed it directly inside the sacred Kaaba. Because was so highly respected, people trusted him. And because the Quraysh were the custodians of the Kaaba, other tribes across Arabia looked up to them. They saw idols in Mecca and began to adopt the practice as well. It started as a single compromise by one man, but that one decision eventually rewrote the religious beliefs of the entire Arabian Peninsula. Over the generations, that single idol multiplied. By the time this era reached its peak, the Kaaba was surrounded by 360 idols. Every tribe that visited Mecca brought their own local god. The sanctuary Ibrahim built for unity had become a chaotic marketplace of competing deities. This era is remembered as the Jahiliyyah, a time of deep ignorance where forgetting their spiritual history led to a collapse of their social one. As the statues went up, the basic sense of right and wrong began to vanish. This spiritual decay led to endless tribal warfare and social injustice. Common people were often treated as property by leaders who answered to no one but their own ambition. The pure legacy of Ibrahim was buried under hundreds of statues and years of oppression. But even as the darkness peaked, a descendant of Ismail was about to be born into the Quraysh, ready to clear the Kaaba and the hearts of the people.